Sally's written. By the way, she said this morning, I spoke to her this morning, she's sorry she couldn't be here. And she would have been here, but she'd just come back from holiday.
Aww.
And so she sent me a message saying that she's kind of feeling quite emotional about today because of the anniversary of Amnesty.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that with you. And again, so hugely grateful to all of you for the massive support and love for Gentleman Jack and for Sally and for what she's done. And for everybody else that's gone before as well, and all these historians.
Yeah.
Everybody sort of jumps on the back of somebody else. It's only because of somebody else's hard work that you move forward, especially in historical terms. And so I'm thinking, all the people that are involved today in transcribing, and I don't know if anybody here is doing that. Is anybody transcribing here? Yeah. It's fantastic, and new work will appear, and new books will appear, and I think you can count on 2 hands how many books there are about Anne Lister, and it's not enough.
No.
It is not enough, and she really does. I mean, she has entered the literary canon now, and she, her diaries have been recognised by UNESCO. It doesn't get much bigger than that, does it?
No.
So I think, from that point of view, it's just fantastic that people are engaging with history in a very different way. And what I love is the fact that so many young people are engaging with Anne Lister's life. And even when I see things like Twitter, Twitter handles like Big Thermometer Energy. That's one of my favourites. Incorrect Gentleman Jack.
Oh, that's lovely.
Which is hilarious. And I just love it because it's a new way of engaging with history and with a life that's been lived 200 years ago. And why should history be so stuffy? When I'm thinking about the Incorrect Gentleman Jack Twitter handle, and they almost like had a running script going alongside Gentleman Jack's script, just so funny. And so I think it's fantastic that things like that have come out of Gentleman Jack, the drama. And so yeah, ask me some questions.
When did you find Anne Lister?
I've known Helena for many years, and I was in my early 20s, mid to early 20s. And a friend was going to New York. She was leaving to live in New York, and literally the night before she got on the plane, she handed me Helena's first book of extracts called I Know My Own Heart. And she just said, "Oh, would you like this? Read this. It's fantastic." And so I did, and that was the journey for me really. And I think 2 weeks later, I ended up here one Sunday morning, and there's just nobody here. It was just me and a beloved guy called Tony Sharp, and he showed me around, and it was wet and windy and damp and horrible, but just so atmospheric. And I was in the hall on my own, and Tony said, there's one lady you need to meet really, because he was trying to talk to me about the Lister family, and every question I had for him was about Anne Lister. He said, I can see where this is going. He said, you need to talk to Helena Whitbread. So then I met Helena Whitbread a couple of weeks later. And so that was my journey, and started doing a little bit of research with Helena, and really mainly on the letters originally, Anne's letters. And I think anybody who's come to Anne Lister's writing for the first time is pretty, horrified by what they see, and shocked. And so I was as well. But the letters were even more, because they crossed this way.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Have you seen those letters?
Yes, yeah.
So it was kind of a tough way to start. And then I started reading the journals, and it was very, very hard, really hard. And from that came a master's degree, and that was my journey really, my early journey into Anne Lister. Yeah. And like everybody here, it was just life changing. And I think, pockets of my life where I've not worked on Anne Lister, I've done normal jobs and things. She's never gone away. She's always been like a dominant force in my life. In actual fact, because of Anne Lister, I actually ended up moving into Calderdale. I mean, I don't live that far away anyway. I'm from Leeds, but I ended up moving here, and I've been here for the last 10 years. And every time I come to, and Sally says the same, every time I come to Shibden Hall, it kind of feeds my soul a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I can just pop down in the morning very early if I want to, and just walk around, and likewise late at night. So yeah, it's a very special place to me. And even when I'm walking in the valley, and I walk a lot in the valley and the other side of the valley, and it's just fantastic because I'm immersed all the time in Almister. So I know when I walk past a house, I thought, well, she went there to tell people to pay the rent. And, she went there and she asked, Samuel Salmon to vote for her, and stuff like that. And it's kind of constantly in your head all the time. But just smaller things as well, like a bit of transcription I was doing the other day when, she's building a lodge. She's starting to build a lodge in 1836. And it's a massive task. And the lodge out there with the arch on the main road. And she's out there and she's got lots of stones out there, huge, massive stones waiting to go into the arch. And it's little things like that I'm transcribing. And then when I drive past, I think of that.
Yeah.
So it's alive all the time.
But won't she be loving it?
Pardon?
Won't she be loving it if she could see all these lesbians?
She would, yeah. I think, she was very, she didn't like the idea of coming onto her estate, of course. It's like, it's too years later. So I think she was a seeker of knowledge and history was Almister, so she would appreciate all this. She was hungry for information all the time, which is why she read so much. And she was, I think I say in my book right at the beginning, she's, as a child she called herself a genius. She was precocious.
Yeah, she was.
And she was intellectually, I think it can't be underestimated just how clever Almister was. Today she would be up there with the top consultants, the top scientists. She could have had her pick. She could have been one of the major intellectuals of the day. And I think it's only when you start to read her journals and when you start to delve more into them just how clever she was. And whenever you start to read them, even now when I start to read them, I always kind of feel, she makes me, when I finish reading a passage or a month of diary, she makes me kind of feel this big. And then I've got a page of notes where I need to go and try and find out, God, what on earth is she talking about here? What does this mean? So yeah, does anybody want to ask me about Gentleman Jack Series 1? Saran, Sophie? Any exciting features?
Everything.
But do you know, the carriage scene with the thermometer was actually done in the studio in Leeds. It was a really difficult shoot that day because we were in obviously it's just a big sort of like massive old warehouse that's been converted into a TV studio. Not at all glamorous, black, dark. You can't see where you're going half the time. You're tripping over the cameraman, whatever. But the carriage, we built the carriage, and it was on like we had like four guys or two guys rocking it, and we'd had this really high tech kind of like. Computer stuff behind it with the graphics of the with the landscape, so it looks very good. Obviously,
Yeah.
Did you think it was outside?
Yeah.
That's great. But it was a really troublesome shoot that day, and lots and lots of takes, and it was tricky dialogue for both Lydia and Saran.
Yeah.
And so there were lots of takes, and I loved it because there was lots of giggling as well because it's a funny scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a funny scene,
And,
yeah.
we never expected it to have the kind of impact it did. It's not illegal. But we didn't expect the barometer to have the impact it had. But I remember talking to Sally about it when she was writing it, and I don't know if it's in the script. Have any of you seen the script online? I think, does it say in the script directions, Anne Lister needs to have a fuck off massive barometer? I think maybe that's what Sally said to me. So we didn't expect it to have that kind of impact. but it did, and it's really funny. And now, as it's come today, the thermometer is here today, and it's made other appearances as well. So that was really funny, and it was a great day, but it was a tricky shoot to do, just because of the dialogue, and we needed lots of takes. And I think that's what's really fantastic about the actresses, and I'm new to TV. I haven't, first time for me working as a consultant, and how professional and how fantastic the
Do you
actresses
think
are.
there'll be a DVD of the outtakes?
Very unlikely. I know people keep asking, but
Don't you think it'd shatter it though?
To some people.
who knows? For series 2, they might just incorporate a couple. But I have to say, this Saran Jones is so bloody brilliant. There's not that many. There were some funny ones, but when you're shooting a TV series like that, everything's so tight. The schedule is so tight, and to go over, you can't run over at the end of the day. It has to, whatever you have to do has to be done. Otherwise, you're into big overspends. So everything is strictly monitored and timed. So. But I mean, all that's factored into the day, of course.
Are they filming the next one now?
No, not till all being well, May 2020. So we're now storylining for Sally's written episode 1, and we're storylining for episode 2. She's in the process of writing episode 2. So it's early stages yet, but we're really full on with the storylining.
So what happens in episode 1 then?
How did you get involved in Gentleman Jack? Did you know Sally before?
Yeah, I've known Sally for many years, and we met through, people might have heard this before, but there was many years ago, 15, 16 years ago, there was a project to started to try and transcribe Anne-Lister's journals, and I got to know Sally through that.
Okay.
And then we became friends from then on. And
then she said, hey, write a book.
yeah, and she's always had this desire to write about Anne-Lister. And of course, the time is right now to write about Anne-Lister.
Yeah.
Politically in every other way. But this is what amazes me, I don't know why I didn't expect this kind of level of response from the drama and from people hearing about Anne-Lister for the first time. I should have done, because I know what impact it had on me, she had on me. So, but it's still overwhelming, to get all the messages every day and again I talk about this outpouring of love for Sally and the drama and Saran and Sophie and everybody who's worked on it. But particularly the impact that Anne-Lister seems to have on people. And as Sally said, as Saran said, she's Anne-Lister's a little bit like Marmite. You either love her or don't like her. But I think what everybody tends to do is respect her, and respect the fact that she did what she did, and she wrote the diary she wrote, and she left us this amazing legacy.
Thank God they were found.
Yes.
I think she's changed her LGBT history now, isn't she?
Yeah. Yeah.
In a profound way.
I think so, because she's touched so many, gay women and people struggling with their identity just across the world.
It's all sexuality.
All sexualities, yeah. And I think that's what's fantastic, because what she showed in her diaries is, it's okay to be different. It's okay to be not, considered whatever is the norm. The norm is supposed to be. You accept who you are, and you lead your life according to the dictates of what nature is telling you to do. And I think, that's the strong message that comes from Anne-Lister's diaries. And I think when when Sally and I were initially talking, when we've had script meetings about Gentleman Jack in general, it was always about telling Anne's story as authentically as we could, and being as true as we could to her life. But of course, television has different demands, and trying to tell Anne's story. For series 1, we transcribed over 300,000 words, so trying to pin that down into 8 hours of television. Can you imagine how hard it was, and what we had to leave out, and what kind of liberties we had to take. So yeah, it was tricky and painful, but you know, I think some of the criticisms, and there are not many criticisms, is that we didn't go deep enough into some aspects of Anne's life. But you have to make choices, and I kind of think we got it right, didn't we?
Yes,
definitely. But yeah, any more questions about series one?
I was going to ask you, apart from Shibden Hall,
Yeah.
which was your favourite filming location?
Right, it's got to be the kiss scene.
Oh,
Episode 8.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not clever enough to be able to articulate what that day meant to me, being on that hillside with Saran and Sophie. Other than, you know, it will always stay with me. And, you know, you had a wonderful day yesterday, a gorgeous weather day, but that day was just spectacular. And Sally and I, you know, we say that we think she was with us that day. It was almost like seeing Anne Lister and Anne Walker on the top of that hill. They were that fantastic together, Sophie and Saran. And it wasn't at the end of the shoot, it's kind of like 3/4 of the way of the shoot, so people were getting a little bit tired, and it was, you know, emotions and everything else, and I think, you know, you can see that in the performance from Saran and Sophie.
Yeah.
That kind of like, you know, you're back, you're here, you're on this hillside, I've been through all this crap, you know, are you really going to commit to me? It kind of had all that kind of energy about it. But that, you know, the vista up there is just stunning. And
So what was the actual final scene that they filmed?
final scene was in, well, it's difficult because there were some they had to do reshoots of scenes after the main shoot finished. It must have been Copenhagen. Yeah.
Did you go to Copenhagen?
I did. I went to Copenhagen, and I mean, again, it's such a magical part of the diaries is Copenhagen to read, and how she just worked the room. Anne Lister just knew how to work every royal room, and she did in Copenhagen big style. But all the time, I think, you know, she was thinking about, a lot of the time she was thinking about Anne Walker while she was there.
Yeah.
She just didn't disappear to Copenhagen. I think at the end of that exhaustive period of Anne Walker going up to Scotland, you know, it was a relief for Anne Lister because she was emotionally exhausted and fed up with the toing and froing, the yesing and the knowing of Anne Walker.
Yeah.
And, you know, real life is not always very, very nice and very pleasant. And I think you have to accept that when you read the journals, that, you know, whatever you might read might not fit in with drama. Theirs was a complex relationship. And I always want to defend Anne Lister because without Anne Lister, Anne Walker would have had a very different, much sadder life.
Yeah.
Whatever you think about the relationship, I think, you know, she plucked her from, you know, what could have been a very, very tedious, not much happening life where she'd have just languished in her, you know, neuroses. And there was some core thing there for both of them. And I think like any couple, they, you know, it was, you know, relationships are hard.
Yeah.
You know, you have to work at them, and you know they did. And you know, there's so many moments in the diaries, and I'm transcribing some of them now, where, you know, it's painful to read what's going on between Anne Walker and Anne Lister, and the manipulations on both sides very interesting as well. To a degree, Anne Lister's Anne Walker's mental health issues, she had a certain level of power with that mental health in terms of how she could make Anne Lister feel and what she could, you know, there were long moments in the diaries where they just didn't speak to each other. And it was about Anne Walker not speaking to Anne Lister and sending her to Coventry, basically. So lots of interesting things like that, and how Anne Lister had to deal with that on a daily basis and how to keep everything afloat. It's very, very interesting, complicated and complex. And hopefully, you know, everybody will get to read these transcripts at some point, because you need to read them to get the full impact of what their relationship really was about.
Yeah.
And there's so many times in the diaries and in the later diaries where, even before they go off on their major travels, where Anne Lister just cannot shake Anne Walker off. And it's because she doesn't want to shake her off, basically. There's many times in the diaries where she says, you know, I'm going to be so glad to get rid of her. I've got to get rid of this woman because of what she's doing to my head. She's making me ill. And then she said, but I can't because there's got to be some core love there between them that keeps them bonded. You know, and in spite of all the fantastic love that she had with Mariana Lawton, and I suppose Mariana Lawton was the big love of her life, but, you know, it didn't work, did it? You know, and Anne Lister said nobody feels at 40 as they did at 14. You know, things change, things move on, and your expectations about what you might want from a partner change as well. So I think that happened for Anne Lister.
Do you think it was a manipulation between both of them?
I do, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think you can only appreciate that when you start to, sure, manipulation is the right word, but it was there was a power in the sense that Anne Walker had all the money.
Yeah.
You know, if you flip it on its head, and Anne Walker had the money, and so she had, ironically, to a degree a greater power over Anne Lister. And the pockets in the diaries where she uses that power, especially in 1837, and hopefully we'll get there, you know, in series 3.
Yeah.
Can I ask
a question about underwear? What did Saran wear as sort of the underclothes?
Oh, she had.
We've got a conversation whether she was wearing men's breeches or whether she was wearing men's underwear.
I think there a version that you need Tom Pye, our costume designer, for this. She had lots of layers on, and she had like. Did you see the scene where remember the scene where she sat on the Anne Walker's she wakes up and she's at a cliff fill, and Anne Lister's there sat in the chair, and she's got a breech, she's got drawers on, hasn't she?
We remember that scene well.
Very. It's that kind of, she had like, they were kind of gathered here and tied.
Yeah.
And they came up here and I think they're tied. So they were kind of like a men's, I don't know what men's
Long john.
Like a men's bloomer.
Yeah, a men's bloomer.
Because when she lies down on the couch talking to her auntie,
Yeah.
Like,
some sort of long john or something.
you know, they wanted it to be, you know, Tom Pye, and some of the scenes that Sophie and Saran were doing, the kissing scene on the settee, I think just before Mrs. Priestley walks in. I remember that fantastic scene. I remember watching it being filmed, and I remember Sophie Rundle saying, you know, she was lying back, she said, I can't move. I thought of course it was sticking in her, and she said, I'm just going to have to sit up like this. It was really funny, and you know, they had to, you know, Sophie had to be in it, because like on this chaise longue as well, which wasn't, you know, I mean, 19th century furniture and costumes weren't conducive to good lovemaking. It took some time to get through those petticoats.
She got there.
The many different layers. Yeah, they had to be very inventive.
Once.
So yeah,
This one.
lots of different layers, and Tom Pye, the designer, is fantastic. I mean, I worked with him quite a bit, and everything was authentic, right down to. I mean, I've said it in an article. I think the tartan, you know, we used for the Cameron clan was sourced from Scotland, from the original Cameron area, Lochiel. So everything was very, you know, he went all over to buy Anne's white satin dress in Copenhagen. It was sourced from some top satin fabric producer, or, you know, but he used a lot of the Yorkshire woolen people as well, and lots of the Yorkshire mills here to source his fabrics from, which was good. But did you like the costumes? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think they worked really well.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
And I think it's funny how, like, when you see them in Bangkok, they do look slightly different colour than they do on the television. You know, like, they look slightly different.
Yeah.
We can't get over how Saran's waist is tinier than mine.
The dresses are so small.
Yeah, I know. Wow. Yeah, it is phenomenal. And she's 5'8", 5'9". So she's a bit taller than. You know, she's 5 inches taller than Anne Lister was. And so yeah, the costumes. I'm glad you know the costumes just they're fantastic. And when we had all the listers in there, sat around the table doing the, you know, at home with the Lister scenes, we used to call it.
Yeah.
You know, around the dinner table, and you know, we were all standing in the other room watching. It was just fantastic. It's like watching the Listers. You know, it was really like being at home with the Listers, and it was that brilliant to watch and that authentic. And all the food on the table as well. The food was produced here on site by this amazing chef. So none of it is plastic or pretend. And so, you know, all these lovely poached pears you see, and it was all authentic food that they would have eaten in the day. No, that was Ribena. That was
The brandy was Ribena,
yeah,
was it?
Ribena, diluted
Because
Ribena.
they drank a lot of that, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Was Cordingley
Not wine.
really cutting up actual rabbits?
she was.
Yeah, thought so.
Yeah, she was cutting up actual. Authenticity is absolutely everything.
Yeah,
Right?
you could
And I
tell.
think, you know, those little details are really
Yeah.
fantastic, aren't they? Because it just you know, brings it all to life much better.
Yeah.
And Anna Pritchard, who's the set designer, you know, we're thankful to her for all the amazing things she did inside Shibden Hall, to make it a little bit shabbier than it is today. So look the next time you watch it, if you watch it, look into the house body and notice the huge fireplace in the Gentleman Jack series. That was all built. It's not there now, so it's all been taken away. And that was the idea, to kind of make it look a little bit shabbier. And of course we couldn't film in Anne's bedroom because it was too delicate. So all the bedroom scenes are filmed in the studio in Leeds.
Even Aunt?
No, not Aunt Anne's bedroom. That's filmed in the bedroom up on the north side here, looking down.
Is that the red room?
No,
No,
we
it's
didn't-
the one with the green bed.
Yeah,
we
we
did
didn't
green
film
bed
in the
with a
red
green
room.
bed.
Yeah.
Oh.
But everything, you know, what makes it so special is that we could film here, and we could film in all of, you know, we filmed at the real Cliff Hill, there might, I mean, you know, at some point there might be a possibility that I can arrange getting a Gentleman Jack face group up to Cliff Hill. You know, I'll try and arrange that for you at some point.
Just
They could-
800 of us.
There's 899 now, I think. Yeah. But a lot of them are in America, so we're okay.
Yeah, the people who live there now, the house is now divided into two halves, and the fantastic CGI people at Lookout Point sort of doubled it over and made it look like one house again, which was just amazing. But you'll get to go in the main half of that. You could get to go in the main half of the house, and it's just lovely to be in there. You know, the staircase that Anne Walk would have walked up, her Aunt Anne Walk would have walked down, where all those horrible conversations happened. It brings it all to life. So we filmed, in fact, the scenes where Aunt Anne Walker greets Anne Lister and Anne Walker, not so much greet, but when Anne Lister and Anne Walker come back from York and Anne Walker gets the letter about Mr. Ainsworth, that's filmed in the interior of Cliff Hill. So look closely at those scenes, because next time if you get to go in Cliff Hill, then you'll recognise. And we really didn't have to do very much to the interior. It's really nice.
What's the truth about when they broke the fourth wall? Was Marion meant to do it as well? Because I heard that wasn't supposed to be the case, but worked extremely well.
Some of them were scripted, others were. You know, but so much of brilliant acting is these little improvisations, and I think that's what they're married about. Did you like the breaking of the fourth?
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah, but what did you like about it?
It was that connection with the audience.
Funny, very funny.
It's like he was having a conversation with us.
Yeah.
Very funny, and not too much. That's very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Some shows
balance.
Today, it's constantly talking to the camera.
Yeah, it has to be very subtle for it to work.
Yeah.
We got the balance. Hopefully, we got the balance right.
Marion's facial expressions.
Isn't Gemma Whelan brilliant?
Yeah.
Really
Amazing.
fabulous.
When she tapped on the head at the end.
Yeah, just little things like that are fantastic.
It's the subtleties in the action.
The price of coal scene when she's doing all the maths and everything.
Yeah.
His face is a bit.
She's one of my favourite.
What's the word, Barry? Sorry, thank
And walks out the bedroom when she pats her head.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Facial expression.
I like it where she's, I'm going to make a show me in a shed.
It's an old farm.
It is not a farm.
It's gone in.
It's just fantastic, isn't it? I think my favourite of all, my favourite breaking of the fourth wall has to be Saran going into the Holy Trinity Church.
I was crying for the whole of 20 minutes.
I mean,
Yes, where she
when I
just
see that, my heart still skips a beat.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just like, come on, come with me.
Yeah.
Enjoy this wedding. I can't,
Yeah, but it was pure happiness.
Yeah.
I started crying when they were on the hill, and I stopped after the episode was gone. I cried so much.
Do you think that Anne Walker should have like the same size of her letters on that plate because she was also the one who was in that marriage, not just Anne Lister?
Yeah.
You know,
Possibly. I mean, it's
I
it's
see
all,
it like it's probably the first marriage we know of, gay marriage we know of, and maybe it deserves another plate from somebody
maybe,
else.
Yeah, maybe sometime in the future. There's always sort of controversy
Yeah, that
about
would be
plots and
nice.
what goes on and how they do it.
Because they've had to change that one, the Atlas to one.
Yeah, are you all aware of the Anne Lister Memorial group that's trying to get greater recognition for Anne Walker?
Yeah.
You're all aware of that, so there's a
Yeah.
huge amount of work going on behind the scenes to recognise Anne Walker in a more dominant way, equal way.
Just because even the little plaque Crow Nest doesn't mention her at all, does it? It talks about Titus Salt living there, but
That's right,
it's like
yes.
she's been eradicated.
Well, there's great work going on behind the scenes about rectifying all of that. So that's brilliant. I mean, some really exciting things.
Yeah, it's sadder.
Yeah.
We discussed about Anne Lister's headstone. So, do you know?
Yeah, we haven't. We've got Sally and I are going to be meeting somebody from the Minster in not such a long time. So we're going to be talking about that again.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's there's lots of things kind of happening. I think when you embark on working on a series, it's certainly all consuming, and time's very limited, and I think you try and pack in as much as you can. I think it's really important to do things like this today, to talk to fans and to find out how you're all feeling about things, and all being such super Anne Lister buddies.
Just admire you and telling us so much, and we can't thank you enough for taking this time to
It's reciprocated, and without you guys being so appreciative, we wouldn't be anything. When you make, as Sally said, when you make a TV series, you just do not know what the reaction is going to be. You cannot second guess what's going to happen, and so it's just fantastic and scary the second time round working on series 2, because you've kind of got to
Set the bar.
Because you realise how big it's become now.
Yeah, how big it's become.
Does Sophie and Saran realise that they're now huge lesbian icons?
Do you know what? I had a conversation with Saran before filming out here, and I remember straight away, and I said to her, do you know what, Saran? I said, you are going to become such a massive lesbian icon. And she kind of laughed and said, oh, I mean, she has.
Definitely.
And Sophie.
And
Sophie,
both of them equally.
And they're such lovely women.
Are they aware of any of this
Well, they
fandom?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, they're busy actresses. They're on to other projects and things, but they're definitely aware of everything, and I think it's kind of keeping it real as well, isn't it? It's knowing how to move forward with Anne Lister and to treat her memory in the best way. Yeah. And I think if we keep doing things like this and keep talking about her and not be frightened to disagree with each other about what we feel about her, but just keep talking and keep spreading the word about how amazing she was and what she did. I think it will all be good. I just where will we be in 10 years' time from here with Anne Lister? What will be happening? I wonder.
We'll be back here.
Back
For the
here,
10th anniversary.
The 10th anniversary, the next anniversary of her death. But I wonder where we'll be in terms of books. Will she be on the curriculum in every school? I'd love to see that. Who'd love to see that? Definitely in history, and it would be amazing, wouldn't it? And why shouldn't she be? She deserves to be. She deserves.
Yeah, there are no translation yet in Italian of any of Anne Lister's book, but I'm getting my master's now, and I'm planning to translate something.
Yeah,
maybe.
Great. Yeah. This
because
is it. I mean, anybody who can read the diaries and is not English and doesn't speak English or speaks English but it's not their first language, who can spread the word for their own people, and who it's fantastic.
Yeah, and there's quite a good fan base here in Italy too. So it would be, they were actually asking for somebody to translate them, but the major printing companies are not interested because Anne Lister it's niche yet.
Niche, hopefully there will be. Fingers crossed, there might be some translations coming out. We're not sure yet, but it would be great to get French, German, Spanish. It'd be wonderful, wouldn't it, to have more books so people could read them. So
When did you get your masters in? I can't remember asking. What did you get your masters in?
Well, it was on Anne Lister. Within the
What was your subject?
English.
English.
Yeah, English literature. So
is that available to read as a
it is
dissertation?
it's only in Halifax Library. I'm trying to get it as a PhD. I mean, it was done nearly 30 years ago, and of course I was a lot younger then. And I read it the other day, and I thought, did I actually write this? There's some interesting. I'd like to get it out there because some interesting stuff I talk about the code, because it was part of the English degree. It's not really talking about the life of Anne Lister. It's talking about, it sort of discusses ideas. It's more about the text and about playing around with ideas of femininity. And it's called Anne Lister and the Split Self. And it's a study of her diaries, critical study of her diaries. And it's about how she balanced the idea of being a proper lady in society with this kind of more transgressive side of her identity, and how she kind of balanced the two, and how the diaries mimic that in terms of the playing hand and the print hand. So that's what that thesis is.
Have you thought about bringing it out as a small book?
I haven't, no. But,
So will
there's a
you?
possibility.
We'd buy it.
Yes.
We've got 899 advanced sales already.
It's about 10,000 words. It's about 10 or 15,000 words. It's about that big, and I suppose I could print it down into a smaller, manageable. Well, it would be a good resource for somebody who's studying Anne Lister and maybe who's at university or something. It's got good bibliography in it.
Helena wrote a book that she put on Amazon with it, co-wrote it for question and answers.
Right.
Secret Diaries, question and answers.
And she put that on Amazon. She put it through Amazon.
Is that possible? Can you do that on Amazon? Can you?
Yeah, it's
It's
self-publishing.
self-published through Amazon.
Hint.
Just self-publish it on Amazon.
Yeah, but we'll all buy it.
Yeah, it's not costing you anything, and it's
You don't get a lot,
No.
but it's
It
out
would be just to
there.
get.
But it's out there.
Yeah, you shouldn't really have to pay for an academic piece though, really. You should just be able to access it. I don't think it's very accessible, that's the point.
Helena sells hers for £5.99, which is really good.
Yeah.
But the point is, you've got to think about this. There's very, very little on sort of gender studies,
Yeah.
and that would go a long way. People could actually refer it in their own.
Yeah, I think what people will find interesting is that I mean, from my point of view, I was a lot younger when I was writing it, so it's quite interesting to read some of my ideas about what I was thinking at that time and how I've changed and moved away from. There's nothing in there that I can't think I'm impressed about. Yeah, just do. So yeah, that's a possibility. So yeah, there's a thesis out there.
So can you show us one, please? Tomorrow.
I'll try and work on that and try and get something out there.
That'd be really good. Yeah.
Yeah, we would definitely.
Yeah.
And you know, even if you find little bits in it that you find interesting. I mean, I was just really interested at that time, interested about, you know, I mean, how did Anne Lister manage to, you know, live the life she lived and be a lesbian in the 19th century? How did she do it? And then you see how powerful the diary was at that time to her and what it meant to her. It was a you know, a cathartic tool that enabled her to live a life and throw these feelings down onto paper.
And do you think a lot of it was to do with the support she had from her family?
Oh,
like, you know, Aunt Anne in particular?
Yeah, isn't family everything?
Because they knew,
Yeah.
didn't they?
Pardon?
They knew, didn't
Yes. I don't sit on the fence with regards to that. You know, Aunt Anne, the level of intimacy between Aunt Anne and Anne Lister was beyond the fact that, you know, she could not know what Anne Lister was about and that she was a gay woman. And everything in their conversation suggests that. And, you know, Anne Lister always made it very clear where her life was heading, and it was always going to be with a woman.
Yeah.
And I, you know, I say in the book, because she was, you know, so many women fell under the radar of romantic friendship. She was never just going to be able to do that but by virtue of the way she looked. You know, she was a butch woman.
Yeah.
She was going to stand out. She was going to be different. So there was all sorts of things, but I think, you know, the familial support from Aunt Anne, Uncle James, and Sister Marion, and her father, especially from her father, you know, was everything for her being able to lead the life she did lead.
Yeah.
I think, you know, without that kind, Anne Walker didn't have that support.
No.
You know, she didn't. It wasn't understood, you see. I mean, lesbianism wasn't understood, but it was, fortunately for them, unlike, you know, male homosexuality at the time, it wasn't punishable by death. So they, you know, kind of her sort of coterie of women that Anne Lister moved in, you know, it was almost like a subculture within that coterie of women, because nothing was an issue for them in terms of how they behaved. It was like they'd just gone on with their lives. And yes, they were privileged, they did have money. But Anne Lister didn't have a lot of money in the early days. She had to really watch the pennies.
Yeah.
You know, it's a misconception that she was rich. She wasn't.
No.
It's only really when 1836, when the passing of her father and Aunt Anne died, she came into her own with money. So she only had 4 years of that. You know, it wasn't. But she was such a fantastic, skilled businesswoman. You know, she was a risk taker. She kind of she was blasé with the fact that she thought she could be a fantastic commercial businesswoman and she would be a successful one. So she was prepared to take risks financially, and that's what clever people do. They don't think of the consequences, they just go ahead, they speculate to accumulate, and she did that in business, and she did that in life as well, in a way. I think, you know, if I can give you any kind of hint for series 2, there'll be lots of risk taking. Read into that what you want.
Can you tell us what period it covers?
Well, I can't tell you the exact period in the diary, but it's going to be following Anne and Anne once she moves into Shibden Hall and Walker, and you know what their journey is going to be as a married couple.
Will we still be lots about Shibden Hall?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Do you think there'll be season 3?
We hope. We really hope so. It's just, I mean, you know, so far it's an absolute joy to read what I've read so far from series 2. So you're really fantastic. You really are.
I wanted to ask you about, you were talking about romanticism. How much do you think that the two ladies of Llangollen had an impact on Anne?
At the time, massively, because she was going through such a horrible time with Mariana Lawton when she went to see them. And so to her, they represented kind of this romantic idyll. But she was under no illusions on Lister that there was more to that relationship than platonic friendship.
That's what we say.
It takes one to see one.
And she was moved by she was impressed by knowledge of, I think it was Eleanor Ponsonby, is that it?
Yeah.
The one that met her the day and was in bed, I can't remember which one. But have you been to Llangollen? Have you been to Plasnewydd?
I have, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, you've got to go. It's part of the Ann Lister. You
We
must.
only live about 10-15 minutes away from there. We go quite regularly.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, it was an important part of her life going to see them because, again, who did she have to measure herself against, Ann Lister? And she'd read about them 12 years before in a magazine. And so she harboured that kind of desire to go and see these two unusual ladies for all that time, and eventually got there. She was with, I think, it was a very tricky period in her life with Marianne Lawton, and, I think in those particular diary extracts, the same night, well, not same period, because Marianne was travelling with her at that time, and Aunt Anne is as well. She goes to bed and cries her eyes out and thinks, Mariana, why did you not have the courage to be with me full time, like these two ladies are?
They gave their hope.
Yeah, I think so. I think their kind of lifestyle wouldn't really have suited Ann Lister ultimately because she was such an adventurous person.
Yeah.
I mean, she wanted to be out there all the time, Ann Lister. She was only happy when she was moving around this estate or moving abroad, or walking or doing something or writing. She was such a busy person. They were a lot older than Ann Lister, and but people used to come and visit them. They were kind of like fated as being these wonderful, romantic, people.
It's amazing we walked through that.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Remarkable.
So I always think, Ann Lister was touched by. She was a true romantic at heart, I believe. The way I describe Ann Lister in terms of how she writes the diaries is that and I think it kind of sums up who she is, because I said that she writes her diaries with the heart of a romantic, but with the eye of a forensic scientist. And I think the level of the detail in the diaries is the science part, but the heart and soul is the romantic part of her. And I think that's why we've got this amazing legacy. I think that's why we have such detailed entries and every day of a life that we can learn something from. So yeah, but
and then Plasnewydd is trying to get the top hat there.
Is it?
Yeah, because obviously Tom based the top hat on the two ladies. So
right.
Yeah, they are trying to get it to Llangollen for a little bit at a time.
Right.
Maybe we would be able to come up and
be nice to revisit.
I'll be there.
Be nice to revisit.
Anne's obsession with the time, obviously very marked throughout the drama and through her diaries as well. Do you think she was a little bit OCD at all?
Yeah, definitely. I think she was. Again, it's about this idea of Ann Lister being very scientific, and every minute of her day was full. From getting up, she had a structured day, and I think you might read into that a little bit of OCD, but I think it was just. She just had phenomenal energy, and that energy had to be harnessed in various different ways, either through learning or through physical work or through travelling. And I think it was more that really.
Or through flirting. Sit still.
Pardon?
Or through flirting.
Flirting. Oh yes, there had to be flirting time.
She never had trouble finding the ladies, did she?
Do you know what? Twins. I was thinking of putting something out on Twitter actually, and asking people, because Sally and I have often said this to each other. What would we, if we could time travel back, and we had, we were 21st century women, but we could time travel back, and we had that opportunity to do that, and meet Ann Lister for a day. And just meet her. So the carriage, the high flyer's coming down Stump Cross, it stops there. She's in it, she's ready to go off to York. You're this 21st century woman and you get inside it and you're with her. And you're off to York as well. What would you say to her, to Ann Lister?
You wouldn't talk.
Grab your coat, love, and pull to
Knowing what you know about her now and how much she's how she's touched your life. Yeah, it's a really interesting. I think it's a really interesting concept. If you had one thing you could say to her, one question you could ask, what would you ask her, and what kind of response do you think you'd get?
Yeah.
And
is it legal?
she would, you know, I think she'd really kind of welcome the interest in her life. I think she'd love it. I think there's a kind of little bit of kind of uneasiness about writing about somebody's life in such intimate detail. You know, and it's funny, I woke up this morning thinking about my book and thinking, you know, in the introduction I'd written something about her sex life, and I've questioned that since. And I think, should I have done that? And you know, you always have these dilemmas when you're writing about Anne Lister and thinking about her and talking about her, because you are actually talking about somebody's life. And ultimately that life was written as a secret, as a diary for herself. And she'd even gone to the trouble of putting most of it into a code. But I suppose the passage of time and knowing what we know about Anne Lister and how much she was a seeker of knowledge and wanting to learn about her, you know, about her own true self and her own identity, I think she'd appreciate the fact that we all wanted to do that now as well. And as long as everything's in context and not gratuitous, I think it's acceptable. I think I struggle with some major newspaper articles in some tabloids where it says Anne Lister seduced hundreds of women, you know, Anne Lister serial seducer, Anne Lister manipulator. It's just so far off the mark. And it annoys me as a gay woman because I think, you know, would you be saying that about Lord Byron? Would you be saying that about, you know,
well, the media do, don't they? They don't care what they write.
So I struggle with that. It actually makes me really angry, but I think, you know, it's just wanting to grab a headline, isn't it? Yeah, I'm really anti the predatorial tag. Anne Lister didn't need to predate on anybody. She really didn't. I mean, you know, the women she was with, they formed their own little jealousies about her, about, you know, the lack of attention they were getting at certain times. So I think it's difficult to hear things like, I find it difficult to hear things like that, and I know, you know, in the past things have been said about Anne Lister like that, and it's still said, and I think it's ignorance basically, and it's a lack of understanding about lesbian sexuality as well, and you know, and women's sexuality, not just lesbian sexuality. You know, Anne Lister liked to have sex, and the women she was with, they liked to have sex, big deal, you know, and so yeah, things like that I kind of struggle with a little bit.
She was even active at school, wasn't she?
Yeah, well, the Eliza Rain story is, you know, long and complicated. She was a difficult child at school. She was an energetic child, I think she was always, Anne Lister, you know, throughout her life, she was always just very true to who she was, and you know, one famous quote is, you know, to play a character not quite my own would be a state of bondage for me. She calls it thraldom, boredom. You know, to play a character not me would be something I couldn't endure.
Thraldom?
Yeah, thraldom.
Well, that comes from the Vikings, thrall means slave.
Yeah, slavedom, and bondage. Yeah. So she says that. To play a character not my own would be a state of thraldom. It would be bondage. It would be that painful for her to do that. So, you know, going right back to being a child. You know.
I'm just going to ask, you've read a lot of the diaries, obviously, and their diary entries and transcribed them. And I wondered if, because I know I do sometimes when I watch a TV show, if there's ever been one particular entry that you looked at and went, oh, why did you do that? You smack your head. You know, whether it's poison wells or whether it's doing something outrageous.
Gosh. I can't think of anything, I mean, really, not off the top of my head. I don't think, I mean, I'm constantly in awe. I mean, there's a tricky part in the diaries where Marianne Lister's wanting to marry Mr. Abbott, and Anne Lister's very against it for all sorts of reasons. And I kind of find that's always a difficult bit to read, because I don't believe, you know, I kind of think, could you not have acted slightly different there, Anne, and given Marianne more of a, she backed you, could you not have backed her? But it was even, again, the diary showed it was far more complex than that. And there's times, you know, where Anne Lister at the end of it comes around and says, you know, never interfere. You know, she says to Marianne in a roundabout way, I wouldn't interfere in your happiness. And again, little things like that crop up, and I think, well, she's redeemed herself a little bit. But there's some really funny episodes where she does things on the land and she makes mistakes and she falls into the brook and stuff like that. Well, why did you do that? You shouldn't have stepped over that huge larch. You know, silly little things like that. Yes. Yes. I think some of the things I find tricky in the diaries and you know, I'm a big animal lover, and you know, sometimes the animals. I mean, Anne Lister was an animal lover, but she treated animals in the way that 19th century people treated animals, and so they were utilitarian. And in most ways, she was fantastic compared to how. But sometimes I hear about things about the way horses were treated, and I think about the horses going from here to Scotland, and I think, my God, they were flocked to death, these poor horses. And it's silly things like that, and I think, you know, I wish she'd been a bit more. I wish I could read something in the diaries that tells me that Anne Lister set up this charity for Shibden horses or something. But I've yet to find that.
Shibden veterinary
Some
clinic.
fantastic animal stuff coming in series 2, I can say that much.
And how about flashbacks of her young life?
Oh, what about the coin table one?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the
Oh.
Yeah. Flashbacks are really useful because it's a useful tool in TV because it gives you knowledge of what's gone on before. But again, like the breaking of the fourth wall, they have to be used very carefully. So there will be some in series 2. Yeah. We're not sure yet which ones.
With the one where she's playing cards and smoking a cigar. What was that actually based on? Was she in town, or did she get caught out?
There was some poetic license there. When she first moved to Shibden Hall, she was a bit wayward, Anne Lister. Can you imagine it?
Yeah.
And you know, she'd socialised with Christopher Rawson and Jeremiah Rawson and Catherine Saltmarsh and all these people, and Catherine Rawson and Miss Alexander and all these people in Halifax. And I think a mother and a father at the beginning had a real job on their hands trying to get her to settle here and behave herself, and so did Anne Town. She was just like a naughty teenager, really. So I think she'd go out and she you know, I think there's an episode where she's playing cards and she stays out too late. It's turned into something much bigger in the drama, of course. Yeah, there's sadly some flashbacks we couldn't, you know. Inevitably, when you shoot a series, you have to lose some stuff, and that's always sad. But maybe they'll be appear in series 2. We can squeeze them in.
Yeah, because we need the blue shirt back.
I mean,
the blue shirt.
I can tell you now that episode 2. I hope it stays. Episode 2 of series 2 kicks off with the most amazing flashback. Well, I think it's amazing to me. But you know, again, it's early days. It could change.
Did you delete soldiers from the Peterloo episode?
Yeah. Did you see? I posted a video of a scene that we filmed and we didn't use.
Yeah.
That was a march. That wasn't Peterloo. We didn't know. We didn't decide to do that because politically there was so much happening in 1832, the time of the drama, and so we did film all the March of the Radicals in Halifax and. Massive scenes that we filmed in Bradford, actually. They were fantastic. But sadly, they were just we couldn't share them.
She would have been against the reform, wouldn't she?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she didn't. I mean, eventually, I think she came round to realising that obviously change was inevitable. She wanted to keep tradition. She was traditional, and she wanted to keep the old order because it's what she knew and it's what she understood. You know, and. Change is frightening, isn't it? It's interesting actually because she was such a forward-thinking woman, and so scientifically forward-thinking, and yet politically, you know, when it came to emancipation for people and people of, you know, working-class people, she was not forward-thinking. So yeah, again, complexities of Anne Lister, the dichotomies, but she was like all the other landed gentry. And interestingly, they all stuck together because of that reason.
I think one of the big things she disliked was the fact that her lesser sort of workers and stuff were getting to vote where she as a landowner couldn't have
Yeah,
votes.
yeah.
And that, bearing in mind that she was sort of very masculine, that really irked her. That, you know, because why could she not have the vote? She behaved like all the other men, but yet these people here, they've got it.
Yeah, she originally, you know, she described people who wanted the vote for women as demagogues. You know, she called it absurdity when she thought that women, somebody, you know, people were advertising for women to get the vote many, many years before. But then in 1832, when the Reform Act came about, where you know, men of certain property rents could have the vote, you know, and she couldn't. And she did reform her thinking a little bit about women.
Yeah.
And she, you know, you'll have read it somewhere that she said that women with property who use their powers correctly should be able to influence the voting system somehow, and, you know, as long as they use their powers wisely. And she classed herself as one of those people. But, you know, the power was moving away from her. You know, the men were becoming stronger in their thinking. Her tenants were. They were starting to not agree with her, and having the confidence in Souden is one. You know, the Souden story is made up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know that the Souden, the real Souden family were fantastic.
Yeah.
God-fearing, loving family.
Yeah. Not
quite different. And so that's interesting. But Thomas Souden, Sam Souden in the diaries, he did really, you know, he sticks up to her in the pub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did in reality in the diaries stick up to her and say, you know, I'm not going to be voting your way, and, you know, there will be a time saying that the landlords are going to be thrown off the land because the tenant's going to rise up against them, they're going to refuse to pay these extra rents. He did say all that to her, and she was really, really affected by it, and talked about it for many days afterwards in the diaries to all the professional men. So it sunk in greatly what he said. And bit by bit you can see the power just slipping away from her in the months following that conversation with Samuel Souden, with the elections that happened. So politically it's an interesting time, which is why we focused on that, and we didn't go back repeatedly. Again, it's all really fascinating to read Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So is there any more questions for Anne?
Go on. How much of the diaries have you personally read?
Well, in terms of transcription, where I've actually physically transcribed, now I think I had an email from Lookout Point the other day, and I think we're up to about 750,000 transcribed words, stretching from 1832 to up to the middle of 1836. So that's what we've done so far for the drama. I've read most of the diaries, but not all of them. The section I haven't read and that I want to read is the Russian side, which is the last period of Anne's life. And I've just relied on other transcriptions as well. And there's bits of the earlier life as well in 1816 and 1817 that I want to go back and read. But I'm very fortunate because I've got all the diaries on a memory stick. And I've got the most amazing facility just to be able to dip into any part of the diary at any point I need to. So I've got 5 million words on this stick.
Wow.
It is really amazing. There's a lot of work to do, there's tons of work to do on the diaries. It's just fantastic that people are transcribing. The way I transcribe is that I read blind from the diary, code and plain hand. I record it into a dictaphone, and then it gets typed up at Lookout Point. So I have all my transcriptions are all recorded. But everything that we've done through Lookout Point has to be proofread, because it, you know, when we were doing it's been done so quickly and so at such speed that if we were ever to publish it, it would have to be, you know, proofread. So, you know, that's another major job. Okay. Yeah.
Right, well, thank you, Anne, for